David, a man who crashed his car into a Verizon store was denied a reduction in bail today by a Fond du Lac County judge.
20-year-old Benjamin Ayer is accused of huffing just prior to the crash, which left several people injured, including one person critically. Jason Zimmerman was at the hearing. He's live now in our Fox Valley newsroom with the First Alert update there. Jason.
Bill, $300,000 cash bail previously set will remain in place for Ayer's release. His family afterwards expressing their disappointment to us off camera. The crash took place in late April, injuring a number of people, including a person who was pinned under the car when it crashed through the glass walls into the Verizon store's showroom at a high rate of speed. Now, according to the criminal complaint, Ayer admitted he was inhaling compressed gas from an air duster at a restaurant before driving onto Rolling Meadows Drive and losing control of the car. The district attorney also says drug paraphernalia and a small amount of marijuana was inside the car at the time of the crash. In court today, an attorney for Ayer told the judge a $10,000 cash bond is a lot more reasonable, considering his client does not have a previous record.
In reviewing the CCAP of similar type charges, it appears that $10,000 cash bond is kind of consistent with this type of offense. The $300,000 cash bond seems to be unduly high.
Addiction issues can strike any person of any background, and it does not discriminate if they come from a good family with good support or the opposite of that, and that's the danger that we face in society with addiction.
If convicted of all of the charges against him, Ayer faces more than 100 years behind bars. He is due back in court on October 3rd. Reporting live in the Fox Valley newsroom, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.